Fam Bam, what's going on? Before I get started, I really wanted to say thank you so much for all the love, kind words, and prayers that you have been given to Charlotte and myself for the video that we shared last week. Your words truly do mean the world to us, and I don't want that to be missed when I reply back to some of these comments. Now, when I read the comments on this video throughout the past week, I took my time to really digest a lot of them, and I didn't want to comment back because I didn't want my words to be taken out of context for what I'm going to say to some of these comments. All that being said, the game plan for this video is I have 4 comments that I want to respond to, and I'm not going to be blurring out these names of the people who commented because, you know, when I reply to your comment, don't be frustrated, don't be upset, and yeah, so that's what we're gonna do today. So I have my iPad right here. The last thing I wanna say is these things that we're gonna be talking about, I'm gonna be talking about in my newsletter. The link is in the description. If you guys can sign up for that, that'll be greatly appreciated. I'm super excited to get that to you guys because we're gonna talk about some deep stuff there. And I'm also gonna be showing some Fan Bam love in there as well. So yeah, let's get into the very first comment. So the first comment comes from Amos Shun. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And she said, I would hate that be, okay, she's saying, I would hate to be crying and my husband just sat there and looked at me. Going through medical issues makes you feel so alone. Your wife is basically screaming that she needs you. Stop using excuses and be her husband. Now, when I read this comment, the thing that stood out to me the most was stop using excuses and be her husband. Now, this was interesting to me because it actually correlates with a thought that I've been having for like the past 6 or 7 months. And it's about how long me and Charlotte have been married. So me and Charlotte have been married for 5 years. And when I think about 5 years of anything, 5 years as a child, 5 years of doing, you know, a hobby, my first 5 years of football, it took me a really long time to get to the point where I was with football, for example, like the NFL. I worked my entire life to get drafted in less than 1%. And I think for me, I don't understand how much work I put in to get there. And it was much longer than 5 years, right? So when I think about, you know, using excuses, it's not about really using excuses, but really me understanding that we're babies in this marriage game. And then when I think about my background, I lived in 2 divorced houses. And for Charlotte's background, she lived in a house where she didn't have a dad. She was raised by her mom and her aunts. So when you think about our dynamic in marriage, we are literally figuring it out as we go. So I'm gonna speak for myself, I'm not gonna speak for Charlotte. There's some emotional immaturity on my side for sure. I've never seen any man communicate with a woman in a way where it was cohesive and he can hear her and vice versa for a woman. So it's not about really making excuses. I think the powerful thing is understanding that you do have a lot of work to do and seeing that and then working on that. When we made that video the other day and I was looking at Charlotte when she was speaking, I wanted to give her the floor to speak and me just listen. I was attentively listening to her, and as I was listening to her, I could start to feel how she was feeling. It was at one point in the video where she started to cry, and I almost started to cry, and I kind of held it back. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I do have these urges to like want to hug and like comfort her, but I'm still trying to figure out how to communicate in a way that she needs to feel loved and supported. So yeah, all that to say, when I think about, you know, making excuses, I think it's about understanding like that awareness and then working on that once you're aware. You can't fix any problem until you know that it's a problem. You can't fix anything unless you have the awareness to see, okay, this needs to be changed. And that's where I'm at specifically with me and Charlotte and being able to emotionally support her, because I can support her in many different ways, but the emotional support is where I possibly lack, not possibly, is where I do lack, and I'm aware of it. And I'm pretty sure everybody else is too, because y'all said something in the comments. So yeah, that's the first comment. The second comment is from Gabrielle, and she said, man said, I really do appreciate how open you both are, but I really wish you hugged or even touched Charlotte after that long explanation of her hard time and what she went through, crying and looking so helpless. You just looked at her like she said nothing. I pray that you find more compassion, understanding, and empathy towards your wife. Your kids will also need that type of compassion as they get older. After you explained that you should have been more emotionally present during her hard time, and you never know what could have happened, Charlotte asked you, what do you mean? I didn't understand your answer. When you said that, I heard, this could be the last time I have with her, and I'm sitting here in my own feelings like I'm like an idiot and not supporting my wife. I will pray for you both, but it takes hard work, said. Get in touch with those emotions that you lack. You have to dig deep when you are fasting. Find the root and dig it out. Charlotte, I feel for you and you are a strong woman and can get through this. And what stood out to me the most was she said, this could be the last time I have with her and I'm sitting here in my own feelings like an idiot and not supporting my wife. Now, this part was interesting to me because I can understand what you're saying, Gabriel, by saying, I'm sitting here looking like an idiot. Because I think a lot of the times, I actually do feel like that. Where I'm like, why can't I figure this out? Why can't I be here and give her what she needs? And I beat myself up about that for years. But again, like in the last comment, what I said, I only know what I know. I only have the capacity that I have. And I think, this is where prayer comes in for me, where I'm asking God to give me that strength because I don't have it. I wasn't taught it. I didn't see it. And I think a lot of the times for most of us, well, I can speak for most of us, but for me, a lot of my motivation came from, TV and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like my dad and my mom were magnificent providers. They made sure we had everything that we needed. They made sure that we were taken care of. They taught us how to survive. But my mom and dad were young, and and my dad didn't have a dad. My mom didn't have a dad, and they didn't have the example to see people conversing and being emotionally present for one another. Like my parents didn't do that for each other, and they ended up in divorce. You know what I'm saying? So I'm learning from what I didn't have, and that's all that I really can do. So feeling like an idiot is part of that, and I think that's part of that awareness that I think God has given me, and that I'm constantly learning to be the husband that I want to be for Charlotte. You know what I'm saying? So I understood exactly what you meant when I read this. No hard feelings. I get it. You know what I'm saying? And it's all love. All right, so the next comment is from Markeisha. Sorry if I said that wrong. Said, I feel you. My family shuts down and it's impacting my empathy to really hear what my partner is saying. We must unlearn and do our best. The first step is acceptance. And Charlotte, he will get there. You're going to be fine. God has you okay. Trust him. Do not give up on God. He's so strong and mighty and has plans for you. Trust his will, Charlotte. Count the blessings around you and trust God. You guys got this. Now, this comment was also because it was cool to see somebody who understands at least my family dynamic of things shutting down. You know what I'm saying? That's what, man, I could think of so many stories from my childhood where arguments would happen or serious talks would happen. My mom tried to approach my dad tried to approach my mom, and it was nothing, right? It was nothing. And that's what I saw. And for me, that was normal. It was normal for me. And I think, and Charlotte could attest to this in the beginning of our relationship, we've been married for 5 years, been together for over 10 now. When Charlotte used to try to talk to me about anything, it was no. I ain't talking about nothing. And it's taking me some time to even get to the point where I can communicate, hey, I'm feeling this way. Oh, you're feeling this way. Okay. Why do you feel that way? It took me years to get to that. And then on top of that, playing football in a egotistic, male dominant place, we don't talk about our feelings. We here to perform and play. You know what I'm saying? So again, going back to you only know what you know. So to see somebody who understands this same pattern was just good for me to hear, because I know I'm not the only one that's alone. I feel like a lot of people probably have the same experience, because communication is hard, man. Especially in marriage, and you got to learn. And if I have a friend who said he saw his parents and they never had an argument in front of him. And he said he wished that they did have arguments so that way he can learn how to communicate and not shut down in that way. So again, it all goes with what you know. So thank you, Markeisha. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, for this comment. It was super encouraging. The next one is, and it's actually 5 questions, not 4. My bad. This is the next one. This was sad to watch. You can see the disappointment and sadness in Charlotte's face and the way she was holding herself. She looked alone sitting there. Just a hug or grab her hand said as a start. I might get reamed for this, but there comes a time when the excuse of our childhood upbringing no longer is an excuse. I've been here from the beginning and hope to see you together for many years to come. When I think about using childhood as an excuse, now, from my experience with counseling and talking to people, my friends and family, my parents, I think for a lot of us, childhood trauma isn't really talked about too much later in life. And I think we understand the decisions that we made for a long time in our life come back from childhood trauma and things that happened in our childhood. And I think to say like using it as an excuse isn't really, I don't think it's about being fair or not fair, but you don't really know what you're doing until you trace back into your childhood and see where this pattern comes from. And I think, like I said in the beginning, is like seeing and being aware of that and then working on that is the key. And the thing about awareness is once you get aware, it doesn't mean it's going to happen at the snap of a finger. It takes a long time to get these patterns down. Like again, like I said, we've been married for 5 years. Now I'm learning, I have an awareness of something new to bring into my marriage, and it's going to take me a long time to build that skill, right? So, again, I think it's not about making excuses with anything. I think you could take the same approach with anything in life. It's just when marriage is so much harder because you're working with somebody who is also imperfect, who also has a bunch of things that they went through and see things from a different perspective. So, yeah, I thought that comment was super interesting as well. The next one is from D Squad, and she said, "She making me cry. I can't even finish the whole video, and it's like he want to hold her and comfort her. He just don't know how. I can tell he doesn't like to see her cry." That's exactly what I was going through. It's so difficult for me to look at Charlotte and know she's sad, and know she's crying, and knowing that I could possibly do something, but I don't know how to do it. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. Like, I'm like, should I hug her? You know what I'm saying? Should I tell her it's gonna be okay? Should I rub her back? It's like, these things are literally going through my mind. And, when it comes to space, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you always wanna respect people's space. Like where I grew up, you respect people's space. And I think me and Charlotte are even learning about space on a whole nother level that we're not gonna talk about here, you know what I'm saying? But I just, really felt seen when Dee said this. And and a lot of these comments were far on this side or far on the other side, which I understand. Everybody, when you guys comment, a lot of you guys are speaking from your experience and seeing yourself in Charlotte and knowing what she needs. And some people see my side, and then some people see the whole thing, which is why it's beautiful when you guys do comment under the videos. And then this is the very last one, and then I'm going to be done talking because I feel like I've been talking for a long time. And this one is from Investor Mindset 22. He said, "Longtime subscriber, praying for you guys, and thank your wife for her courage to talk about experiencing a miscarriage. As a person who works in the medical field and whose wife works in OBGYN, it's definitely common and not talked about enough. My wife and I experienced a fetal demise at 29 weeks, and after 15 years together and 6 years of marriage, it completely tore us apart for a bit. Because for several months, I was emotionally withdrawn and didn't want to even talk about that experience, and she needed my reassurance and positivity, and it just wasn't there at the time. I come from a similar background as you were growing up in my household, where we didn't talk about problems, we just boxed them and so-called manned up, which I have learned as an adult with raising kids of my own is not the best way to parent. Fast forward to 2 years later, my wife and I have welcomed a now 5-month-old baby boy that brings us so much joy. I say this to show you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and our darkest moments shape our future. And if you guys can make it through that, your marriage, family, and friendship can make it through anything. Much blessing." Now, this comment really just wraps up everything that I was kind of talking about before with the other ones, and also kind of where my mind is at now. Because again, we are very early in our marriage. I am very early being a husband. She's very early being a wife. We're very early being parents. And I think that I know that my kids are watching us. I know that my kids are watching me, how I treat their mother. I know they're watching how I'm emotionally there for their mother. I'm aware of all these things, but just because I'm aware of them doesn't mean anything unless I'm doing the work to fix them. And for me, it comes the awareness and then not really coming up with a plan, my own. We already talked about me kind of have my own plan, how that doesn't work out. But really diving back into God and praying for God to give me the ears to hear and the eyes to see Charlotte, giving me the awareness to see when I can act and when I can fall back on Him and listen to the Holy Spirit to act to my wife how she needs. And I think another super important thing is actually communicating to Charlotte, is asking Charlotte what she needs. I have to get out of my comfort zone and do what she's asking me to do to feel comforted and loved. And I think a lot of it, I'm a very authentic person, and to do those type of things that she's asking me to do feels very inauthentic to me because it's not who I am. But that's what marriage is. I'm one flesh with somebody else, and I'm learning how to support them the way that they need it, and vice versa, same with Charlotte for me. And I think when you can see that and understand that, that's the light at the end of the tunnel that I think Investor Mindset 22 is talking about, and that's what I'm looking forward to now. Making that video last week wasn't easy. It was hard. It was really difficult for me to sit there and watch Charlotte, cry and pour her feelings out in front of everybody. You know what I mean? Because it makes me look at myself like, man, what am I doing right? But I ask myself those questions, like, what am I not doing right? And I don't shut down anymore like I used to. Now I sit there and I pray and I try to figure, okay, like, what can I do? And I think that's the most important thing. So before we got into like all the fun videos, we went snow sledding the other day, and then me and Charlotte did a fun project that I'm gonna be sharing on Thursday and next week. And then we're also going to a cabin to get away, so that's gonna be fun. And I wanted to reply back to some of these comments. I'm actually gonna start doing these more often. And I'm actually thinking about making a Patreon too, to where we can have more like deeper conversations about stuff like this. If there's something you'd be interested in, leave a comment below. And most importantly, I want you guys to converse about these topics in the comments. I know like I comment back to everybody, but I would love if you guys comment back to each other so we can all learn together and just become better, husbands, fathers, wives, mothers, and all of the above. You know what I'm saying? I call you guys Fan Bam for a reason, and we talk and we converse and we learn. And I truly do mean that. So yeah, that's all I got for today. And I will see you guys on the next one. So till next time.